Hello, I am David W. Parker. This is Programming Today I Learned, Svelte episode 16. We are going to be looking at adding a form to create new posts as a user, as well as editing any post that we want and deleting posts. We will also be adding DOMPurify, so that way we can protect against cross-site scripting attacks, and Prettier, make our code look nicer and more standard. So let's take a look, without further ado, at what we are building. So you can see here, I just kind of cleaned up the menu a little bit. I added this little button here, and it's got a small little animation on it, and then I'm logged in as a user, and I can click and edit a given post as long as it's one of my posts. And that's it for now. And then if I'm signed out, that actually didn't refresh that. I need to click that as a bug. But the only signed in users can post. And yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we are building now. So the first thing to do is in your Ruby app, if you've been following along, post policy, main thing is you want to change this create to just be true. Otherwise, you can't create more than 3 posts. So just be aware of that. And in our package.json, we have added quite a few things, mostly things around linting, Prettier, Svelte 3, Prettier plugin for Svelte. Those are the main things with Prettier. And then DOMPurify and isomorphic DOMPurify. So the reason for the Prettier is we can go in here and say format document, and it'll go ahead and automatically space and make things look nice. Of course, you can change that to be settings that you like. But normally when you're working with a team, you have some kind of standard. I like to use the defaults, generally speaking, as much as possible. That way I don't have to tweak things project to project. And when I go to some given team, I'm already prepared for what most people are just going to end up doing, some kind of very standard thing. Nav, all I really did was extract out all the common classes into this classes constant and provided them on each class. Then gave a little margin here where needed, just so these look more uniform and standard. In settings, the only thing that I did was I made it so if you are here and you refresh, it hides everything, and we can throw a loader on for a second. And in fact, we can hide even the sign in and register buttons, and that's until it loads the fact that that local user has been loaded out of local storage. And so that's this loading here on mount. We're saying loading. And then the only thing we're doing with that is basically hiding this div until that has been loaded. So that's just a little thing we added. I needed to add this set timeout here with a small timeout before I redirected in order to not allow the user to go to this page. Otherwise, it was blowing up on trying to access things it shouldn't have access to quite yet. This is definitely a hack, and I'm sure there's a better way to do this. And in fact, in general, all of these protected pages, settings, if we wanted to make a new post its own protected setting page, anything that needs to be behind a login users, we're going to do that later in a layout to make sure we have a protected layout versus a non-protected layout, so that each page itself doesn't have to implement this type of logic, which is generally speaking not that great. But for a singular page that we have right now, it works. So just keep that in mind. We will be cleaning that up. And then in the index, we have a lot going on. So let me make sure there's no other files that we need to look at real quick. Nope. First of all, I wanted to throw out a quick thanks to Flakes and Mushi Nissan on Discord for helping me figure out how to work with DOMPurify and SvelteKit, getting some errors there. And the answer ended up being using isomorphic DOMPurify. So before we go into that, DOMPurify here is a DOM-only, super fast, uber-tolerant XSS sanitizer for HTML, MathML, and SVGs. So you can import it and sanitize some type of text that's coming in. And it is not made for ESM modules, so somebody added and created this isomorphic DOMPurify. It's a very, very small little wrapper around DOMPurify to make sure it can load, and it loads it either in the browser if it has access to window and process, or it loads it in the server side. So thank you to those two users on Discord for helping me get this up. So here in our index, we have a lot going on, like I said. We have this new button here. We have the ability to expand these and then click on them now, because before I had it so you couldn't click on it. We have the ability to click edit into one of these. We have a little bit of animation, and then we can also go ahead and just delete a post. So there we go. Let's go ahead and see all of everything we have. So this still doesn't need to be here. So the first thing is we're going to load in isomorphic DOMPurify. We are going to have on mount, we're going to load in slide from Svelte transition. So this is the animation that you see here, is called slide. We're going to get our session and our AUD and user from stores, have our errors, success, and submit button. We're going to have the same class that is presented for our buttons here. We're using everywhere. We're going to create a new show form, and we're going to set it false. That's this form up top. We're going to have the loading set just the same way we did in the other settings page for now. And we're going to have an errors array, submitting, success, very similar to what we did in user sign-in. And then we're going to have title, content, and published at. Within our on mount here, we're going to check to see if we have a user. And if we do, we're going to set loading to false. This is the handle update method, the handle destroy method, and the handle submit method. We will look at those in turn in just a moment. So let's go ahead and see what we got here. New section we have for checking to see if we have a user, and then if we're not loading. And then we're going to check if we have any errors, or if we have a success, we'll go ahead and have a little display block of success or errors respectively at the top. So that is that. Here's our input of button, and it's going to have the classes from above. It's going to give a little bit of margin below, and we're going to give it the cursor pointer. This new post, and when you click it, it's just going to change the value of show form. Toggle it. Here is our if show form. So we're going to have our form block here. That goes down to the end right here. And then this ends the user check, loading check. So our form for now, we're not going to have an action we're posting to. We're going to have transition slide. So this is our first animation that we're doing within our Svelte application, and it is one of the built-in ones. And if you look under the Svelte docs, under API, then you go scroll down to transition slide. You can see transition slide, it takes in some parameters, and you can also do an in, have a slide, and out. You could do different animation if you'd like. And the parameters are delay, duration, and an easing function. You can give it a different easing function, and you can make it last a certain amount of time or delay as you click it. These are all the easing functions that you have access to. I'm not going to walk through all of those in this particular episode. We may cover just the APIs in another one. And that is the default is cubic out, it says here. So that is what this does. Transition slide would be the same as having this block here, similar to what it says here. Delay of 0, duration 400 milliseconds, easing of cubic out. Then in here on our onSubmit for the form, we're going to prevent the default submission, and we're going to have our handle submit function. Again, I'm using Tailwind UI for the design right now. We will do our own later, but this is just a slight little block card that they have, and I kind of modified it slightly. And it has a little drop shadow and a couple of labels, so things are working well for accessibility. So we have a label for the title, and then we have the input title here. It has a placeholder, and then it's going to bind the value of the title, which is the variable defined above, of course, at the very top up here. And then same thing with content and published at. So then here's our body, write something magnificent. And right now it binds the value of the content. So again, both of these just use bind and then value, and that'll set that variable automatically. Just to do this little markdown supported thing here so users can see, hey, it supports markdown. A lot better ways to do that. And then we have our submitting button. And this is the one we've reused multiple times so far, and so we will continue to use it. And it just says save. And when you submit, it runs our little spinner for us. And then when it catches everything, it goes to the handle submit. So here we're going to say we're submitting true, which gets our spinner. We're going to clear our errors out. We're going to make a post to our API V1 posts endpoint, which exists within our Rails application. And then it's going to, here's the body, is going to be the post for the title, content, and published at. And you'll note that this is in an underscore rather than camel case, as that is what Rails is expecting. We could have made this published at like that and provided it with a value that way, but it was just easier since this is not used in a lot of places. And we're going to go ahead and pass back the user AWT as well as our computed AUD. If we get a 200 back, we're going to go ahead and clear our form out, and we'll hide the form. Then we'll go ahead and throw the response data onto the front of the posts, and we'll get the success message. We have one of these other errors, we'll just show out an error. And then if we have the 500 here, we'll show out 500. One thing to note is if you wanted to, you could, because you have this data, you could optimistically go ahead and put it on top of the posts, for example, and have it say like saving while it's down there. And then if it had an error, go ahead and throw an error, show an error after the fact. Otherwise, just save it optimistically. That makes things seem faster for the users rather than when you click post, waiting for it to go to the server, validate, insert, return something, and then put the the response JSON on here. So you could do that optimistically. A lot of sites do that. I'm sure Facebook and all the big ones do. So that is the handle submit. Next up, we're going through each of our posts here. We have the same form, and we're going to say if post edit as a slide, and this one's going to just kind of call handle update. And generally, this has the exact same thing. The main difference is it doesn't have the card. So you're not going to have a card within the card. It's just the card itself. Again, we could clean this up. This was a lot of copy and paste in terms of CSS for now, just to have something look somewhat decent. The main differences are in our bind value here, we're going to have the post attributes title. So our JSON responses look different now, in case you're unfamiliar. It's an object with ID type and an attributes object. The attributes are where title, content, and publish.stat live. And that is to fit the JSON API spec. So JSON API.org. So that is this spec here. So we have data and we have an object in here with a type, ID, attributes list, and then relationships, etc. I don't stick to this specification specifically 100%, but I do think it's really good for a lot of teams and a lot of applications. And like it says here, if you've ever argued about how JSON should be formatted, it can be your anti-backshitting tool. And that's generally where we've used it. We've had a lot of conventions, and we kind of tweak it slightly in experiences that I've used. Same down here with the post body, we have post attributes content. And then we have the submitting button, say updating. Then we also have a cancel button here, where we just change it and say post edit false. So one thing to note, and I didn't do this in this application, but you could do, is let's say you wanted to change this from test to test 111, and you decide to cancel that. Well, it looks like it's been changed, test 11111. And that's because I'm not storing the previous state, and I'm not clearing it and resetting it or anything. So you might want to do that in your application. You also may want to make it, if they click cancel, it gives a little pop-up that says, hey, you have changed text on this. Are you sure you want to cancel? And that's very common in a lot of applications. You starting a Twitter post or whatever, it may do stuff like that. Hey, you've written stuff. Don't lose your work. So for now, though, we're just going to go ahead and basically hide the form. And that's what this else does, is it shows the form. We moved the logic out of this for the onClick to expand to the A tag. And I'm saying if it's not expanding, then we have this span here. And this span, again, was provided by the Tailwind UI to have the total field here. But what it does is it ultimately prevents, oops, clicked on that guy's link inside there. Ultimately, what it ends up doing is it makes it so you can't click links within here. So if I have this and I want to expand it and I want to click on this link, I can't click it with that span. So I just moved the logic out. But it also makes it so you can't just click anywhere to unexpand. You have to click up here on the A tag instead. It's not too bad though. We're using post.attributes again, .user ID. This comes back in camel case because that is the standards for JavaScript, generally speaking. And then I'm going to use the optional chaining syntax here. So if user.user.id exists, and that would be the same thing as if we did something like, if I said if user and user, it'd be like that without the question marks. So this just saves us a little bit of time for have optional chaining to make sure that this user ID is equal to the post's user ID. Then we're going to go ahead and show this edit button where it's just going to toggle the state of edit, and then also give us the ability to click on a button and destroy. So those are a couple of actions here. And I would generally, and I didn't clean these up and make these look pretty right now, I would give these like the type of cursor pointer. I may just give them an icon. I might change it to be shown only on smaller views, and maybe give it iconography on hover or something like that. But for now, this is fine. Same with the cancel. It doesn't look pretty, but that's what it is. Post attributes title, publish stat, all the same. And then the other difference is we now have access to DOMPurify. So we're going to go ahead and sanitize the snark down content that we have here. And that'll make sure that we remove any bad actors from trying to do cross-site scripting in our application. So these are now doing some XSS stuff, so this doesn't work anymore. So that's JavaScript. So a lot of little things we can tweak and clean up, like I said, with the buttons, with the storing the state on the update, making sure when you click sign out that this disappears faster, etc. So that's it for this episode. It was quite a bit. Go ahead, like and subscribe if you will. I think I covered everything here. Oh, I guess the only thing I didn't cover is destroy and update. Pause. Same endpoint, handle destroy. And then basically when I get a 200 back, I'm going to rebuild my list with all except for the post that was deleted. So that's what the handle destroy does. It passes in the post. That way we know post ID to use against, and then we're going to rebuild our posts with all of them except for that one. Otherwise, it's the same. And then the update, the main difference is Rails expects a put, and then we're going to be grabbing the post attributes title, post attributes content. And for now, I'm not doing anything with the publish stat. This would be something you could maybe throw a little date thing in there and allow users to schedule out posts into the future. And maybe you don't want them to update posts, and you can have different logic in your backend to not change the publish stat if it's already been published, et cetera, et cetera. So now that's it for this episode. Like and subscribe. Let me know anything that you think is interesting or you have questions about. I will happily get back to you and see you guys on the next one. Thank you.